In the heart of San Francisco's booming tech industry, Eleanor Hayes was the epitome of dedication and integrity, a trusted guardian of truth in a world driven by profit. For nearly 30 years, she stood as the invisible shield against corruption within one of the city's top technology firms. Yet, just 3 days before the day she was supposed to finally claim her well-earned retirement benefits, everything shattered. Without warning, the company's newly installed CEO, infamous for ruthless cost-cutting, summoned Eleanor for what should have been a congratulatory meeting. Instead, she was handed a cold, unexpected termination notice, an abrupt end to a career marked by loyalty and relentless pursuit of justice. But this was no mere layoff. Behind the polished facade of budget cuts lurked a sinister scheme to silence her forever, an orchestrated move to strip her of her rightful pension and erase her voice. As the rain poured outside her window, Eleanor's shock gave way to a fierce, unyielding resolve. This was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of a high-stakes battle against corporate greed, deception, and betrayal, a fight to expose a web of financial fraud that threatened to unravel the very foundation of the company she once trusted. Eleanor was no longer just an employee. She became a beacon of courage and defiance in the face of overwhelming injustice. Eleanor Hayes has spent nearly 3 decades at a leading San Francisco technology company. During her 29 years of service, she has been dedicated and professional, ensuring that all operations are in compliance with laws and ethical standards. She is the head of internal controls, silently detecting and preventing potential violations so that the company can operate transparently and sustainably. For years, Eleanor believed that her dedication would be rewarded, especially as her full retirement benefits were approaching, just 3 days away. However, one Friday afternoon, she was called into the office of the CEO, David Langston, who had arrived at the company only 6 months earlier with a reputation for cutting costs to maximize profits. Instead of congratulations or gratitude, Eleanor was coldly informed by David that due to budget cuts, the company was terminating her employment immediately, effective that day. Even though the company had just announced a record-breaking quarter, Eleanor could not understand the decision. Instead of feeling shocked or angry, she remained surprisingly calm. In her mind, it was clear. This was not a random decision, but a carefully calculated plan to prevent her from receiving the pension she deserved after nearly 3 decades of hard work. Holding the termination notice and the paltry severance package that did not include benefits such as continued health insurance or even a pension, Eleanor understood that this was a legal trap designed to force her to stay quiet, give up her rights, and leave quietly. Still, she decided not to succumb. Eleanor had witnessed and documented many financial frauds in the company, but all her warnings were ignored or swept under the rug. She knew that only persistence and hard evidence could change the situation. Eleanor prepared herself for the long fight ahead, determined not to let her 30 years of service be denied by the ruthless machinations of the new leader. As the rain poured down that day, Eleanor sat by the window, watching the waterfall and thinking about the long journey she had come, the late nights, the missed family vacations, and the silent sacrifices to keep the company afloat. She knew that, while the road ahead was thorny, she would not be alone, and the truth would eventually come out. Eleanor Hayes knew from the moment she heard the news that she had been fired that this was no accident, but a deliberate plan to deny her the retirement benefits she had worked so hard to earn for nearly 3 decades. She was not surprised by the cost-cutting rationale, especially since just a few weeks ago the company had boasted of record profits. But what hurt her most was the callous way the company ended her long journey of dedication, just days before the most important milestone, the day she would be able to enjoy the fruits of her labor. Instead of exploding with anger or pleading for justice, Eleanor chose to maintain her composure, a dignity forged over years of hard work. She knew that in these moments, how she reacted would determine to some extent her future, not only legally, but also her self-respect and self-belief. Eleanor was a determined and shrewd woman by nature. She had spent years analyzing every detail, carefully recording the irregularities in the financial reports, the times her warnings were ignored, and the increasingly unusual moves by the new management. It was this carefulness and meticulousness that helped her see through the sophisticated plot that was taking place. Eleanor did not let her emotions control her. She knew that to win this battle, she needed to be more alert and prepared than ever. So instead of letting negative emotions take over, she began collecting documents, keeping all the evidence of wrongdoing, internal documents and emails containing orders or cover-ups. As a former head of internal controls, Eleanor knew the value of every word, every piece of evidence. In her mind, this was not just a personal matter, but also a fight for justice, for other workers who might be put in a similar situation in the future. Eleanor believes that the truth must be revealed, and that corporate leaders cannot escape responsibility by cowardly tricks. She is determined not to let the intrigues bring her down. Every moment, she feels the strength of determination and justice. Eleanor is no longer an employee who only knows how to work quietly in the dark, but has become a symbol of courage and bravery, ready to stand up to protect her rights and those of many others. In the silence of her small house in San Francisco, Eleanor makes a cup of tea, sits down at her desk, and looks back at the documents she has carefully stored. She knows that the road ahead will be long and challenging, but this time, she is not alone. Eleanor is ready to enter the legal battle, ready for all eyes and the truth to be directed towards her, with an unwavering belief that justice will prevail in the end. For the past 4 years, Eleanor Hayes has been observing and uncovering a series of serious financial irregularities at the technology company where she works. The signs of fraud have become increasingly clear since Richard Moore, the new CFO, took over. Eleanor has noticed financial manipulation, from falsifying revenue to illegally altering documents and papers to hide the truth about the company's actual financial situation. Every time Eleanor submits detailed reports and warnings about these irregularities, she is met with cold indifference. Letters and emails she sends to the board of directors or the internal control department are often brushed aside, or answered in a perfunctory manner, or even asked not to pursue further non-urgent issues. Eleanor knows she is fighting not only for herself, but also for the transparency and fairness of the entire organization. She will not allow herself to be defeated by such silence and denial. Every piece of evidence collected, every email exchanged, every serious report was carefully archived by Eleanor, forming a clear picture of a system of fraud that was planned and deliberately executed. Especially when Richard Moore took over the role of CFO, the manipulations became more and more sophisticated. Eleanor realized the rapid change in the way the company reported its business results, with revenue figures being inflated abnormally to impress shareholders and investors. Her suspicions were not only based on feelings, but also on actual data that she carefully examined. However, Eleanor's efforts were met with strong resistance from the management and related departments. She repeatedly requested meetings to present the evidence, but the meetings were canceled or redirected to other topics. Sometimes she was asked to be less strict. Sometimes she was warned that these issues could negatively affect the company's reputation. But Eleanor did not falter. She believed that any organization that wanted to survive had to be based on transparency and compliance with the law. Her repeated rejections made her feel deeply betrayed. But at the same time, it also made her even more determined to protect the truth. Eleanor was not simply a loyal employee. She was a defender of justice in every number, every financial report, every action she witnessed. That was why she was ready to face any challenge, including standing up to the powerful people in the company. Every day, Eleanor prepared herself more carefully for the legal battle that would come, keeping a strong mindset and a steadfast belief that in the end, truth and justice would prevail, no matter how thorny the path. After realizing the scale and severity of the company's financial irregularities, Eleanor Hayes decided that she could no longer simply fight them internally, but had to bring them out publicly and formally. She contacted Benjamin Clark, the company's former chief financial officer, who she knew was now working at the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. Benjamin was a former colleague who respected Eleanor's integrity and expertise, and she believed he would help her get the support she needed to deal with the matter. During their initial conversation, Eleanor detailed what she had uncovered over the years: manipulation of financial statements, falsification of records, manipulation of revenues, and the company's deliberate concealment of the truth under the direction of the board, especially since Richard Moore took over as CFO. Benjamin listened carefully. asking Eleanor to provide all the documents and evidence she had kept. Soon after, Eleanor sent thousands of pages of documents, including detailed reports, emails, meeting transcripts, and evidence of conversations that were ignored and overlooked within the company. These documents clearly demonstrated a pattern of systematic fraud that had been going on for years and was growing in severity. Once they received the documents, Benjamin and the SEC investigation team quickly got to work. They determined that this was a serious case of securities fraud and financial violations. The SEC opened an official investigation, gathered additional evidence, and took steps to protect investors and maintain transparency in the markets. Eleanor was invited to testify and explain in detail all of her findings. She worked closely with the investigators, helping them understand every aspect of the case. The investigation sent shockwaves through the company. The board of directors and related departments began to face increasing legal pressure. The company could no longer hide or avoid these allegations. The media began to pay attention to the case, causing a strong impact on the company's reputation and stock price in the market. By cooperating with the SEC, Eleanor not only defended herself, but also stood up on behalf of thousands of employees and shareholders affected by these fraudulent acts. She became a symbol of integrity and justice in the industry she had devoted nearly 3 decades to. Although the road ahead was still full of challenges, Eleanor felt steadfast and determined. She knew that bringing the truth to light was not only about protecting her own rights, but also about protecting the integrity and sustainable development of the entire business community. With the support of the SEC and a belief in justice, Eleanor is about to embark on a new chapter in her life. A fight not only to reclaim her rights, but also to create profound change in the corporate governance system. Soon after the SEC investigation began, the company began looking for ways to silence Eleanor Hayes in order to prevent the scandal from spreading and to protect their reputation in the market. Management proposed a secret agreement, requiring Eleanor to sign a document waiving all rights to sue in connection with the scandal and promising to keep the discovered violations secret. The company's goal was to force her to accept the agreement by pressuring her to sign a deadline and threatening her with the loss of all pension benefits, as well as other unwanted legal or personal consequences. Eleanor, however, was undaunted by these tactics. She understood the value of integrity and was determined to defend the truth to the end. With calm and certainty, she refused to sign any documents without full legal advice and a commitment to silence about what she had witnessed. Eleanor continued to cooperate closely with the SEC, providing additional documents, evidence, and testimony to support the increasingly extensive investigation. The information she disclosed provided the SEC with a solid basis to expand the scope of the investigation and clearly identify the individuals responsible for this financial fraud. Immediately afterwards, Richard Moore, the company's chief financial officer, and several other senior members were suspended pending the results of the investigation. They were accused of being directly involved in the manipulation of financial statements and fraudulently increasing profits. These people were also summoned to provide testimony and face strict legal measures if there were signs of violating the law. This event created an internal earthquake, causing not only the leadership, but all employees of the company to face an uncertain future. The company's stock price on the stock market fell sharply, affecting the reputation and confidence of investors. But for Eleanor, this is the first step in the fight for justice and transparency. She not only stood up for her personal rights, but also represented the professional ethics that she had pursued for decades. Eleanor's steadfastness and determination inspired many other employees in the industry, encouraging them to boldly denounce injustice and wrongdoing, contributing to a clean working environment and promoting sustainable business development. Despite facing pressure and harsh challenges from the company and powerful individuals, Eleanor remained steadfast in spirit and integrity. She knew that only truth and fairness could help her protect her legitimate rights and create positive changes in the business system that she had been attached to for nearly 3 decades. In the immediate future, she continued to cooperate with the SEC, providing full evidence and information and preparing herself to face all the difficulties ahead. Eleanor understands that this journey is not simple, but she is ready for a transparent, fair future for all. After a thorough investigation and pressure from the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC), Eleanor Hayes was finally reinstated at the technology company where she had worked for 29 years. The decision not only restored her personal honor, but also ensured that she would receive the full retirement benefits she had fought for. In addition, the company offered a significant settlement to compensate Eleanor for the financial and emotional damage she suffered during her unfair dismissal. The leaders and those directly responsible for the financial fraud, including CFO Richard Moore and several other senior members, have faced serious criminal charges. They were indicted on charges of financial fraud, falsifying reports, and violating corporate governance regulations, making them legally liable. This event marked a significant turning point in the push for transparency and ethics in the tech industry, and a strong warning about the legal consequences of violating regulations. Although the company asked Eleanor to continue working with them as an advisor in the department to reestablish internal compliance procedures, she declined the offer. Eleanor felt that she could contribute more to the community and the industry by working with government agencies and watchdogs to improve internal whistleblowing systems, protect workers' rights, and raise transparency standards in businesses. She began working with a number of nonprofit organizations and corporate governance experts to develop training programs and build effective and safe whistleblower reporting and handling procedures. Eleanor also actively participates in professional seminars and conferences to share her experiences and encourage other employees in the industry to dare to stand up against wrongdoing. Her story is not only a testament to the power of perseverance and integrity in her career, but also inspires many people about the value of fairness and professional ethics. For Eleanor, the restoration of her rights and reputation is just part of a longer journey. A journey that contributes to changing the face of business and society in a more positive direction. She understands that by promoting transparent and effective internal whistleblowing processes, not only can she protect her own rights, but also help create a healthy, sustainable, and trustworthy working environment for future generations. Eleanor's choice also clearly demonstrates her sense of responsibility and foresight, as she prioritizes serving the common good over personal or short-term interests. On this new path, Eleanor is not only a person who has won a personal struggle, but also becomes a symbol of positive change in the industry, contributing to building a more transparent and sustainable economy for the American business community. Eleanor Hayes has become a living symbol of integrity and determination in the modern corporate environment, where standing up to injustice often requires great courage and personal sacrifice. Her story is not only a personal journey through hardship and challenges, but also a testament to the vital role internal whistleblowers play in uncovering and preventing financial misconduct at large corporations. Over nearly 3 decades of dedicated service to the company, Eleanor courageously used her expertise and meticulousness to document every sign of fraud, from manipulating financial statements to falsifying documents, despite being met with indifference, resistance, and ultimately being unfairly fired just days before she was due to receive her full pension benefits. Eleanor's unyielding action and determination to defend the truth created a powerful ripple effect among the employee community. Her story has encouraged many people to speak up and report wrongdoings that they might have otherwise endured in silence for fear of retaliation or losing their jobs. Eleanor's spirit of internal whistleblowing has contributed to promoting transparency and fairness in corporate governance, while warning companies of the serious consequences of disregarding ethics and legal regulations. Thereby, it not only raises awareness of compliance within businesses, but also creates conditions for building a healthier, more sustainable corporate culture. Eleanor's story has also attracted the attention of state management organizations, industry experts, and the public, helping to raise awareness of the important role of internal whistleblowers, those who dare to speak the truth despite facing great personal risks. The affirmation of the value of individuals like Eleanor in the internal control system not only helps to reduce corruption and fraud, but also contributes to strengthening the trust of investors, customers, and society as a whole in transparency and fairness in business operations. Through this story, many businesses begin to take more seriously the construction of whistleblower protection mechanisms, establishing transparent and secure information channels, and encouraging a culture of responsibility and honesty throughout the organization. Eleanor is not only a testament to the power of an individual with conviction and courage, but also an inspiration for those who are fighting to build a fair, ethical, and sustainable working environment. Her story shows that although the fight against wrongdoing can be arduous and challenging, perseverance and integrity will bring justice and positive change, creating lasting value not only for the individual, but also for the whole society. Eleanor has demonstrated that internal whistleblowers are not only keepers of corporate transparency, but also architects of a better future for the industry and the wider community. Eleanor Hayes never regretted the decision she made, even though the path was full of hardships and challenges. For her, courageously standing up to denounce financial wrongdoings was not only a personal act, but also a way to protect the core values and principles of life that she has always cherished over the years. For Eleanor, honesty and steadfastness are not only professional standards, but also a compass that helps her overcome difficulties in life, maintain dignity and belief in justice. Eleanor's story not only stops at the success in exposing wrongdoings, but also becomes a profound inspiration for her daughter, Elizabeth, and for the next generation. Through her mother's teachings and resilient example, Elizabeth understands that honesty is not always the easy path, but is the only path that leads to true respect and self-esteem. Eleanor's story has inspired many people to believe in the power of what is right and to stand up for justice, even when the world around them is full of injustice and challenges. It conveys a powerful message that every individual can become a change maker by not succumbing to pressure and standing firm, no matter what it takes. Eleanor's journey is a living testament to how standing firm on principles can not only protect oneself, but also create a positive impact that ripples out to the wider community. She turned her painful and difficult days into the strength to stand up and fight, thereby creating a timeless, inspirational story. This story continues to encourage those who are facing injustice in life or work to believe in themselves, in what is right, and never lose faith in the power of truth. Eleanor affirmed that, despite the resistance and even the high price, honesty and steadfastness are always the right choice and bring the most lasting values in everyone's life. And it is from these values that she inspired her daughter and those around her, helping them continue on the path of integrity and justice. For Eleanor, it is not only a personal victory, but also a precious spiritual legacy, a testament to the power of courage and perseverance in the face of challenges. This is what makes a life worth living, an inspirational story that will never fade in the hearts of those who have witnessed and learned from her journey.